Hello and welcome. My name is Andreas Gumse, and you're listening to the podcast Tech Talks and Beyond, where I bring you the latest news in tech and discuss a whole range of interesting subjects, anything from modern technology to ancient civilizations. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Tech Talks and Beyond. The topic I will be discussing today is the current state of surveillance in the world and my views on it. But first, we will go over some news of recent times and then get into today's discussion. The first news I will briefly talk about was posted the 12th of February by Bloomberg. According to Bloomberg and their sources, China has allegedly exploited at least one US tech supplier, namely called Super Microcomputing Corporations. What is very interesting about this specific case is that the company itself had previously no clue about what was happening. However, US investigators have come forth and admitted that they've found tampering in their products for years. Allegedly, this is not the first time the FBI has known about this. This has been found at several occurrences before. So I will list some of them for you. So notably, in 2010, the US Department of Defense found that thousands of their computer servers were sending military data to China, which, according to themselves, was because of code written in chips that was handling some of the core startup operations on the machines. In 2014, something similar happened to Intel corporations when they discovered that a hacking group, allegedly also of Chinese origin, breached their network through one of their servers that contained a chip that downloaded malware from a supplier's updated website. So, in 2015, the FBI warned multiple companies that Chinese operatives had concealed an extra chip loaded with so-called backdoor code in a manufacturer's servers. But this was they never informed Super Microcomputer Incorporations about this. All of these occurrences had two things in common. It was China and Super Microcomputer Incorporations. But the FBI and the Department of Defense did not want this information to be disclosed publicly. Rather, they wanted to surveillance this closely to counter and to test the extent of their capabilities. In short, this news is to inform the public about the possible threat to these hardware hacking attacks. And we're also inclined to believe what previous FBI Assistant Director Frank Filiuzzi said, which is, if you think this story is about only one company, you're missing the point. This is a don't let this happen to you moment for anyone on the tech sector supply chain. So if you're buying chips from any country really, you should make sure to closely follow the production process of the manufacturer so your company won't be added to this list. So I think this news is very interesting, and it kind of also shows the different strategies used in this case by US against China. Obviously, we know that there's been quite hostile interactions with these two countries in the past, which also makes it so for me, I have to take everything with a pinch of salt because I do not take any single side of this coin, because in the past, it has been shown that they're not always that truthful on either side. So that's that news. Next up, we have a battle among tech giants, Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook. Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, the CEO of Facebook, which everyone knows, and Tim Cook, which everyone should know, is the leader of Apple. Though this clashing between the two tech giants are far from new, it's worth noting that the battle has far from calmed down. For the ones not too familiar with the feud, I will give you a quick rundown. So in short, the feud is about privacy, where Tim Cook, the leader of Apple, places himself on the side of privacy and, without naming them directly, has many times condemned Facebook's stance, pointing out that their whole business model is based around gathering data and selling it to advertisement companies and the highest bidder for the data on anyone. So, back to the news. Well, naturally, Mark Zuckerberg cannot just sit on the sideline and say nothing, as they also claim to be doing well on the privacy part. Worth noting is that both Apple and Facebook are facing antitrust regulations. So, for the past about 9 years or so, Facebook and Apple has been firing shots and retaliating. Apple claims they do not need to gather data as they have large profits from selling iPhones, iPads, and Macs, while Facebook relies on advertisement, and in Cook's eyes, cannot avoid gathering data because there's a large part of how they earn money. To fire back to that, Mark points out that Apple, first of all, is paid billions of dollars a year by Google to have Google be the default search engine on the Safari web browser, which seems very conflicting as Google has much of the same business model as Facebook with ads and whatnot. And that they also have a huge market in China where privacy is, you could say, scarce, claiming the chances of complete privacy are slim if existent at all. So as we can see, this feud is still going strong and does not appear to be going anywhere anytime soon. Next, we will move away from the privacy concerning news and into the world of cryptocurrencies. First up here, we have the collaboration of a major tech CEO and a rapper. The CEO of Twitter and Square, Jack Dorsey, and the rapper Jay-Z have created an endowment to fund Bitcoin development initially in Africa and India. The newfound duo is putting in 500 Bitcoins, or about $23.4 million, into this new endowment called Bitcoin Trust. The trust is going to be set up as a blind, irrevocable trust, and the duo won't be giving any directions at all to the team. They will be completely independent. The duo will hire 3 board members to overlook this project and to make Bitcoin the internet's currency, as a job application describes the mission. Meanwhile, the Indian government is getting closer to make a law to ban all private cryptocurrencies and are likely to create its own government-led digital currency. The duo believes that there are no better places to start this revolution than in India, the software capital of the world. But so far, India has not participated much in the ever-developing cryptocurrency world. But Dorsey believes that building a proper Bitcoin network for the currency is just down the alley for the many talents of India. As for Africa, the ever-fluctuating fiat currencies and the general instability in many of its countries has led to a big surge in cryptocurrency trading. Nigeria, located south in Western Africa, has risen up in the crypto trade world by volume, only second to the US. Only last year, the country traded more than $400 million worth of cryptocurrency. Even the Central Bank of Kenya said this week that it will be using Bitcoin as a reserve currency amid the Kenyan shilling volatility against the dollar. So, due to the need and adaptation of cryptocurrencies in Africa, Dorsey said this: Africa will define the future, especially the Bitcoin one. Next up, I have great news for any cryptocurrency hodler listening from the US. If you own an iPhone, you can now link up BitPay's prepaid MasterCard to your Apple Wallet to spend online, in stores, and in apps. This does not only go for Bitcoin, the BitPay app also supports Ether, USD Coin, Bitcoin Cash, Gemini Dollar, Paxos Standard, and Binance USD. If you're like me and you do not own an iPhone, do not despair, because BitPay has already gone out and said that it has plans to add support for both Google Pay and Samsung Pay by the end of March. And for the ones that has yet to hear about Tesla, I thought I could also mention that Elon Musk has already gone out and said that they are soon going to accept Bitcoins as payment for its electric cars. And before we leave the cryptocurrency topic, a worthwhile mention is the latest meme stock, or should I say meme coin. Of course, I'm referring to the Dogecoin. The coin which was inspired by a meme popular about, let's say, a decade ago, the Doge meme. After the huge depreciation of the GameStop stocks and others, the new hype was this coin. Also largely influenced by Elon Musk, the CEO of the tech giant Tesla and the tech giant SpaceX. On his Twitter, he has tweeted quite a few times about Dogecoin, from which he calls Dogecoin the people's crypto. And he's also posted a Photoshop picture of himself as Rafiki holding Doge as Simba in the iconic scene of the Lion King movie. As we all know, Elon is quite the memer and sought to as a god in the world of internet. So taking everything he has to say to heart wouldn't always be such a good idea. Regardless, he, along with the internet army, helped Dogecoin rise from being worth $0.007482 on January the 28th to be worth $0.069991 on February 13th. That is an increase of 934% in only 16 days. With a peak of being February the 7th, with a value of 0.083725, an increase of 1,119% from January 28th. As you can see, some of the hype around it at the time of this recording has already dimmed down a bit, as the value of the coin has had a downward trend in value for the past week or so. And for the last news we are going to bring up today is about the storming of the Capitol and the surveillance used to find many of the perpetrators at the site. Though this is not a very recent news, it is about a week old at the time of recording this episode. But I felt that I still wanted to talk a bit about it, as I feel it concerns all of us inside and outside of the US. So, as everyone has already seen on their respective news channels around the world, the Capitol in Washington, D.C. was broken into during a heated up pro-Trump riot. And we are not talking a small amount of people either. We're talking hundreds who went over the boundary and filled up the stairs of the Capitol. Many also broke in and disrespected the American democracy. But that is for another discussion. Many of these perpetrators didn't have much insight or care for the consequences of these actions and posted pictures publicly on social medias like Twitter. However, the vast majority did not want to disclose their identities publicly, as they knew it was illegal. To track this down should have been pretty difficult, but an unknown source has provided a dataset following the smartphones of thousands of Trump supporters, rioters, and passersby in Washington, D.C. on the day of the riot, which is January the 6th, as Donald Trump's political rally turned into a violent insurrection. It is said that at least 5 people lost their lives because of the riots in Capitol. And a major reason so many were brought to justice is just this data I was referring to. This data was built up of location data, geotagged photos, facial recognition, surveillance cameras, and crowdsourcing. This data collected on January the 7th is a demonstration of the looming threat to our liberties posed by a surveillance economy that monetizes the movements of both the good and bad people here. Regardless if you're a pawn or a queen, the surveillance don't discriminate. You are just a product for them to sell, and often just to the highest bidder. Through this data that was provided, we can easily see that about 40% of the people at the rally went directly to the Capitol after the rally was done. While there were no names or phone numbers in the data, they were able to connect dozens of devices to their owners, tying anonymous locations back to names, home addresses, social networks, and phone numbers. This was largely done because every device now has an anonymous ID that's tied to the device. So this unique ID combined with the other apps with your information, with this they can easily find your real name, addresses, and much more within mere seconds. This is not a tool just used by the law enforcement. This at the core is what is known as mobile advertisement identifiers, which allow companies to track people across the internet and on apps. They are supposed to be anonymous, and smartphone owners can reset them or disable them entirely. However, if you look deeper, you can tell that this promise is nothing but phony. Several companies offer tools to allow anyone with data to match the IDs with other databases, basically tracking down the information until they find out who you really are. This just shows that in 2021, even after Snowden, we are still being traced more than ever. And almost any app that has permissions on your phone will leave digital traces which can be used against you or to manipulate you, either commercially or in other ways. That's all for the tech news for this episode, but do not worry. Now it's time for me to talk a bit about my own views on surveillance and privacy, and a little how to restore some of this privacy online. So, personally, I don't apply so much different ways to make sure that I am secure. There are certain ways I do it. Like I use a VPN. I use certain browsers that are made to be more privacy related. And I avoid some of the largest companies' apps. This is not to say that it's very easy to avoid these apps at all, because the biggest perpetrators in this is Facebook, Google, Apple has some cases on them. So basically, it's really hard to completely avoid them, because the problem with these is like Facebook and Google, they do not trace you because you have a profile there or because you're logged in or anything. They will trace you regardless. You can think like, all right, no problem. I'll just not make a YouTube account, and they cannot find out anything. Like they can't store it into one profile, but they still can. They're still doing it, and they're not only tracking you while you're on their website. They will track you when you're on the other websites. It has been reported before that Facebook can even track you when Facebook is not open. Like there's no browser with Facebook, but they can still track what you're doing. Obviously, this is very scary for a lot of people, and this has bothered me a lot before too. I get a little bit paranoid. Obviously, there's steps you can take into how they use this data, but not really. If you really look into their settings, really try to look for it, you can find some that are like, all right, I do not want personalized ads. But that doesn't stop them from collecting the data that they would normally sell to these people to make it personalized. They might still sell it. And even if they don't, they have all of this information stored on an account. And same, like, not only browsing, it's on your phone, the microphones, the camera, when you download their apps, they will ask for a lot of permissions that they don't need. And that is also one of my advices in terms of if you want to stay more private, you should go into your phone settings, be that Android or iPhone or even other OS systems. In the settings, they should always have a way where you can manage the permissions for certain apps. But the problem is, if you don't give permission to certain apps, they will just stop working on you because they don't want you to be able to block this out. And this is one of the problems. And even when you're online, you're constantly being tracked. They look at where you're at in the world, or like they look at which websites you're browsing. They can look at all of this. They put in cookies. Obviously you can clear these cookies, but I feel like a lot of people, they just don't, because they don't think about it. All of this stacks up. It really does. Before, I used to use Firefox because they advertise that they're more secure than, let's say, Chrome, because everyone already knows that if it's someone that's really bad on when it comes to privacy, it's Google. They collect so much information from you. That's the whole company, because their main source of income is based on a model which revolves around ads. And one of the things that are so common nowadays is personalized ads. Before, it used to be like ads, they used to be one to many. That's what they're called, one to many. So it's one ad, but it goes to like the vast majority of people. These are the ones you would find on, for example, the TV, certain like TV channels and stuff. Because there they cannot decide on who is watching the TV at that very moment. But on the web, they can. They have a profile on everyone. They're like, oh, you're really into purses. All right. Well, then I will give you a bunch of ads on purses. Oh, you like gaming? Well, try this game. Try that game. Have you tried this? Like, a lot of jokes are around there, but if you talk about something, even when you're not on your computer or on your phone, but you have it nearby, and you say like, but yeah, like if you're talking about a specific product that you want, or let's say you have a friend that found this really cool YouTube channel that you really like, he thinks like, oh, you will like it, you should check it out. They're listening. Like, sure, it's not a person that's sitting there listening, but they have AI. They can they catch out these phrases. This doesn't need to be like scary words. It's like, oh, the reason we're tracking you is because we want to prevent terrorism. No, not at all. It's none of these like warning phrases. Sure, they also take that, but that's not all. They take any keywords you say. How do I know this? Well, from personal experience, actually. A friend of mine, I was just chilling with a friend of mine. We were outside, just talking. And he was like, oh, dude, like recently I found this YouTube channel. It's really cool. Like they're doing parkour and stuff, and they're traveling all across Russia. And oh, you should really check it out. I really enjoyed it. It's super chill. I've never heard about it. I've never seen any YouTube channels like that. I'd never watched parkour before. I've never heard about this channel. I don't watch anything that's related. But the same evening, when I went into my YouTube, the same YouTube channel where I'm logged into my phone, because, well, that means they're linked up now, you know, I got the recommendation to check out this specific channel that he named. I do not remember the name of it, and it's kind of irrelevant, to be honest. But it appeared. It was there. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess they're done with the era of being subtle. Before, this wouldn't happen. Go back 10 years, none of this would happen. Well, partly also because this wasn't really that evolved. But go back 5 years. Go back 5 years. It wasn't this extreme. They wouldn't just listen to you and a friend just randomly talk, not on your phone, not anything like that, but just in their room. They wouldn't listen for these keywords and just recommend it straight away. It might happen like a couple of weeks down the line, but then it would seem more coincidental. This is not the case anymore. So it's because of these things that I understand if some people freak out a little bit. I get it. I totally get it. You don't need to be a bad guy to freak out about privacy. I hear this argument so many times like, oh, I've got nothing to hide. I even use it sometimes myself. But it's not really about that. Like, that's just justifying what they're doing, which is wrong. But I feel like for many, me included, it's hard to put yourself up against these tech giants. These corporations you can't really avoid. Sure, you can avoid Facebook, no problem. I mean, come on. For the younger population, a lot of people don't really even use Facebook no more. It's kind of softened down. People don't really use it much. But Google, everyone uses Google. It's really hard to avoid it. Like, sure, maybe you don't use Google search, but more likely than not, you're using YouTube. That's Google. That's the same thing. Maybe you have Gmail. Well, then you're not getting away from that. They're like, oh, well, okay, no problem. I'll make an Outlook account for mail. Or I can, use any other. Yahoo. That doesn't help you. They do the same. They read every mail you get and you send. Every single one. Everything is tracked. Like, there's no privacy in those. But do not despair. There are certain ways to limit this. It depends on how extreme you want to go and how much this matters for you. But there are steps you can take. So I'll share some. First of all, if you have like an Amazon Echo, a Google Home, like Alexa, get rid of it. Just like, it's so bad. I don't know how to explain it, but like, they're listening all the time. And you know this because if you say their name, they will answer, right? So they're obviously listening. They're always listening. Even though the light is not on, let's be honest. So they're collecting all the information. And if you have this at your home, they will get anything. Like, let's say you're having a fight with your significant other, a heated discussion. Maybe you say something you don't mean. Well, too late. That's already down there now. So if you care, get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Another thing you can do is use an ad blocker. Ad blockers, obviously, some websites are like, oh, you're using an ad blocker. I will not let you enter my site, which is kind of annoying. But you need to understand that there's like, what they justify this data collection for is these advertisements. So if you block the advertisements, you kind of like beating them. The data is still there, but you don't let them profit from it. There's several ways you can do this. Every browser have ad blockers, not by default, but in extensions. So you could always go there and you'll check up ad block or something. A way that I found that is very good. It was very good to me, at least. I found this browser, which is based on Chromium, which is the same as Chrome. Like I say, it has the same engine, you could say. So it's fast, but it has an ad blocker by default, and it's very like anti-tracking. It does not like tracking. So they will obviously minimize the level of tracking, and they won't give you pop-up pages. And the ad blocker is the best I've ever seen because it's integrated. It's not an extension that will fail you. And the browser is called Brave, right? So if you care about it, download Brave. It's a great browser. I'm not sponsored whatsoever. Like, this is just personal experience. So you don't need to worry about me sitting here talking up this thing and then it's sponsored. If it's sponsored, I'll let you know. Another way, like if you're a phone user or something, always check the permissions. This is very important because certain apps, they will ask for any permission, like every permission, and it's really intrusive and it's really unsettling. Don't just press accept without thinking about it. Obviously, it sucks a lot if it's an app you can't really escape, but what choices do you really have? I would be very careful Very careful about like what permissions you give to an app, because in a lot of cases they do not need a lot of the things they're asking for. Let's say it's a messaging app, and they're asking for your location. Why does it want your location? Well, to track you. It's like, all right, maybe it wants your address book. Why does it want that? Why does it, like, does that app really need to know like who all of your friends are? Why? So like really think about it. Just think about each and every one of them, and you're like, why? If it's a messaging app and they're like, oh, we need access to your microphone. It's like, okay, yeah, that could be fine because like maybe they need it for audio messages. But if you don't want to use audio messages, you shouldn't really need to allow that, right? Let's just say you're like, oh no, I just text. I'm not going to use this audio messaging. I don't like it. Then don't give it a permission. If they have a problem with that, switch the app. And obviously, this is like kind of goes without saying, but be thoughtful of what you post online. Don't post just anything, because once it's posted up there, it's permanent. Like, as I've read about it before, and this is one, they said it in a way that I really agree with, and I thought it was really well said. They said that publishing on social media today is more permanent than chiseling hieroglyphics in stone. So like really consider what you post. I know a lot of the older generations, I'm not saying everyone, but they might be a little bit less careful on what they post. And also the younger generation. To be honest, a lot of people are just, they don't really think about what they post. They post it and then maybe think after or down the line when it's too late. So just be really careful. We were talking about, mailing apps earlier. You could switch mailing apps. I have an email that is like supposed to be of this zero knowledge services that is from, it's Proton Mail. So it's a Swiss based company, and they advertise for like total encryption, and they couldn't even sell their information even if they wanted to, which I think is a very good thing. So I really recommend them because I've been using them. Obviously, don't just take what I said for granted. Do some research. Just do your homework, really. But I've used them a little bit and I like them. I haven't actually gone through and changed all my email addresses to Proton Mail. But this is because, when you've had an email address for many, many years, it's a slow process. You just have to do it bit for bit. But if you value privacy, I think that's a very good one. And when we're talking about like emailing and stuff, so you're sending, right? Well, we can also think about another one, like Dropbox. You need to be very careful about Dropbox, because Dropbox will open and examine everything you upload. They will most likely sell this information. So yeah, one thing is very important about this. It was Edward Snowden. Obviously, he had a huge. He posted a huge leak back in 2014, and he had some. There was something he called a prism provider. Prism providers included services like Office 365, Dropbox, and Google. And what this means that they're a prism provider, this basically means that they cooperate with mass surveillance programs, like be that NSA or any non-US ones. Like in Europe, there's a bunch of them too, all linked up together, of course, because they want to control the population. But the way you can think of it is like, if Google can see it, if Dropbox can see it, if Office can see it, then so can everyone within this mass surveillance program. It's just that easy. Another thing that you need to understand that I feel like a lot of people misunderstand is that you can't 100% rely on VPNs, because VPNs don't really give you anonymity. They can advertise for it, and that's all great and stuff, But when it comes down to the line, it's never true anonymity, because it's only anonymity as long as their servers are 100%. Let's say you have a VPN provider and their server gets hacked. Well, there's your anonymity. It's all on their servers. So if they get hacked, they can see where it's coming from. They will get your IP and they can get your information directly from there. Or it depends on the laws, of course. But let's say that the VPN provider gets served with a court order. Unless there's like some certain regulations and stuff that protects them, they can see your traffic. Like they will have to provide your traffic. Unless they have like special deals, or like they found a special loophole, or they're just in a country where it's legal not to share that information, then that would be different. But what I'm saying is you cannot 100% rely on it. I recommend using VPNs because VPNs are fantastic. You can use them with Netflix to, access other countries, Netflix and whatnot. And it will keep you anonymous to a certain level, as I said, as long as they're not getting served a court order where they specifically require your traffic, or they're being hacked. Right? So it's still fairly safe. And there are, trustworthy ones, but you can't really say that it's like anonymous, because it's not really. It's the same with like NordVPN, ExpressVPN. What other ones are there? There's a lot of them. But either way, like what I'm saying is like none of them are immune to attacks or court orders, especially hacking attacks. Like they can never be 100%. Yeah. When it comes to messaging, a lot of people are worried about messaging apps because they're sending sensitive information a lot of the time. First of all, don't recommend sending very sensitive information. And if you do, make sure you're kind of protected. So one messaging app that I started using recently, and I wish I discovered it before, is this messaging app called Signal. Once again, not sponsored, but Signal is not owned by a large corporation that revolves around selling your information at all. It's known, at least now, that it's like the best. It's the best for encrypting messages, and they don't sell it. It's just like, also one thing I have to mention is just because something says that they're encrypting it does not mean that it's 100% safe. Example, WhatsApp. They claim to be 100% encrypted, and I'm sure they are. But they also have the keys for it. And since they're known to sell information, I don't think this is anything new. They would just send the information too. Just sell it. They would just unlock it with their key and sell it. This is just speculation, so don't take it for law. But that is what I think. But Signal is not a large company. And to the best of my knowledge, the encryption, and it's built on the fact that they want complete privacy and security. So honestly, your best bet for any app that I've seen is Signal. So just take my 5 cents for that. So yeah, that is basically my 5 cents for it. But I hope that you learned something from it, that you enjoyed it. I really just wish that you learned something from it and I could help you. That's great. So before I sign off, I want to inform you about the socials. So for those of you who is listening on BuzzSprout, I will take the time to tell you about that there's a stream. The stream is Twitch TV/TechTalks&Beyond. For the Twitter, you have twitter.com/talksbeyond. And for the YouTube, I will add the links in the socials feed. If not, just go to Google and search Tech Talks and Beyond. Also, if you enter the twitch.tv, you will see the link for the Buzzsprout, and you will see the link to join a Discord community. So in the Discord community, I will give all the information you need for like when I start, maybe what's the topic of the day and whatnot. So yeah, thank you for listening. I really enjoyed my time here, and I hope you enjoyed yours too. This has been Tech Talks and Beyond. I hope each and every one of you have enjoyed this episode and learned something new. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week for the next episode.